Welcome everyone, this is a meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Today is April 16, 2024. It is 4 p.m. Is there a motion to call the meeting to order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, gentlemen, we're going to hold off on the minutes to be approved. And we'll jump right down into new business. We do have a poll hearing at 5 p.m. New business, number one, budget discussion. Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to combine that with the discussion on the warrant, so I can do both now, or we can...
That's fine, we can jump right to it.
All right.
It's all part of the same discussion, right?
Yep. This is draft 3 of the warrant. And as you can see, the first article is accepting reports. The second article might not be moved because it's just to fund deficit payments, if there are any, but we won't know until after May. And the third is to see if there are any prior fiscal bills, and we won't know that until after May. I've upped by $10,000 the cable-related fund expenditures under advice from our prior technology person, Nick Monticello, who also worked for them and was our accountant. He advised that should be $100,000 in salary and wages and $100,000 in general expenses. This is all part of the consent agenda. You see the various authorizations in the consent agenda. They're all the same things for every year. Library to sell books for $1, etc. Article 11, I've got to check with Conservation on their maximum allowable expense out of the revolving fund. I've been advised by COA to increase it to $45,000. That's for trips. There's a number of other trips that are scheduled. It's not any cost to the town.
Correct.
Free cash, I'm proposing that 81,301 brings us to where we need to be in the reserve fund for our health insurance. 74,178.77 is for a settlement of a court case with the Emerald Bus Company.
That's schools.
That's schools. And I've put the next article in case the schools need it. It's an article that every year is in, and it authorizes transfer of funds for special ed.
Is that the blank spot on 14?
No, it's at the bottom of 14.
Yeah, he means up at the top there.
Up the top, that was just, I did a running total of free cash.
Right, there's a blank at 14 though, and that's what you just talked about.
Yes.
Special ed, so I'm
Yes.
assuming
Yes,
the blank spot up top is special ed, just blank.
it's no cost. It just allows them to transfer out of the sped reserve. But
Oh, from the school department.
it's a reserve account.
Yeah, I know, we've done it before in the past,
Yep.
that's fine.
145,000 is for the 2 requests from the fire department for the alarms, receivers, and the repeater. 20,000 for the seniors, And we'll change the rate to be appropriate with minimum wage.
Yeah.
30,000 is for the youth service program. I think it's one of the best things this board has ever done. It's saved us some money, and it's allowed a lot of your youth to be employed and to gather in various areas of employment and it's a good work ethic teacher. And then 100,000 into the general fund stabilization. I made a rough back of the envelope figuring for what the operating budget is, and that'll bring us up to where we need to be. Community preservation, the article shows you the appropriation from the community preservation fund, and then the reasons for the expenditures down below. You have to authorize these amounts every year. It doesn't mean that you have to spend them. Anything that's unspent goes into the undesignated reserve. We have right now the authorizations for 176,000 and in the article, and we have a request for 45,886. It includes the administrative, typical every year, 13,000. Recreation and Parks, 17,000. Historic Commission, lawn playing, museum fence, the south side. So they've gotten to the other side previously, but now it's the south side's turn. Perry Hill Church, National Register, nomination consultant. That's to bring a consultant in to do all the paperwork on the National Register for the Perry Hill Church. Then miscellaneous articles. You have articles concerning the various collective bargaining agreements. I'm requesting that we look at the excess overlay to fund some of the retros in these. I'll have definite figures by our next meeting. Also to see, there's an article to vote to transfer from the Capital Expense Stabilization Fund and the Water Special Revenue Fund for the Slocum Street project. Those are placeholders, and there's also one for the Sewer Enterprise Reserve Fund, depending on which one you wanted to use. And then there's also an article to authorize borrowing for any money that is necessary beyond that. This is a placeholder. It's similar to what we have done with the ambulance in the past, but we would have to do this to be in line for additional money from the county, since we won't know until after July 1 what that amount is. This will put us, at least give us a parachute.
The Article 25, just for the record, Mr. Kelly, that's the Water Special Revenue Fund, not the Sewer Enterprise Fund. It's a Water Revenue Fund.
Article
25, sir. You said Sewer Enterprise Fund? It's out of the Water Revenue Special Revenue Fund.
I did both Article 25 and 26. One is, I left it wide open for the board to decide where they wanted to take it from. So you've got a Water Special Revenue Fund and the Sewer.
Oh, I see what you did, yeah, we didn't have any discussion before the sewer.
No, I just put them all in as placeholders for
Okay.
the board to decide where they want to do it.
Understood.
And then Article 28 is to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions Chapter 64L, and impose a local meals excise tax of 0.75%. The Acushnet is the only town in the area that does not have it, and it is a revenue source. Exact figures we wouldn't know until we contact the Department of Revenue after we pass this.
Could we get a modeling based on, like, you know,
We could ask if they'll give us,
I mean, for what it's worth, anecdotally, I've spoken to some of the restaurants in town, and they understand the bigger picture that we have here in town, and, you know, there appears to be some support from that community.
I think, are you asking, were you asking Dave for like a modeling of what we thought it would bring in? Because I think when we looked at this a
Yeah.
while back, like, just call it 17 or 18, I think that number was somewhere around 65 grand. So
maybe 100.
nowadays, yeah, I mean, obviously, food prices have gone up from 2017, right? So I was gonna say you might be closer to a 1.5 times, 2 times that number, right? So you could be right around that 100 grand mark, which is not insignificant at this point, right?
We could call DOR and they would give us what the state's revenue is, what they base their meals tax on.
Right.
Probably 2 years ago, because they're never up to date.
Yeah, whatever it is, it'd just be good to know that, like, if we go to town meeting,
Yep.
we at least have that.
And then I put a mock budget in. It's heavy. It's too much because we're going to have to do a lot of cuts.
So the only thing I'll bring your attention to, gentlemen, is the bottom line number at the end, right? It's basically once you start the pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th page, it's at the very end, it says general fund total. Last year, we spent, for the whole town's budget, $34,665,725. And if we don't sharpen our pencils and really get down to work with the numbers that Mr. Kelly's loaded through this budget process, and I know we're not done, but we're coming up to the end where we need to finalize budgets, so we're gonna have to do some serious cutting in certain areas as much as we can possibly do. The difference between the two numbers that you're looking at is $2,374,378. I mentioned that number because it's extremely significant from what the town has spent year over year. In the last 4-year average, we average out roughly $1.2 million a year over year spending. So this number is a 2x that number. It's clearly not something that's manageable. It's clearly not something that the taxpayers and residents of Acushnet can swallow. If you were to approve this budget as presented, people's tax bills would go through the roof. So I mentioned that because we're down to the wire, so I think it's important. I know I'll be spending the next few days with Mr. Kelly going through the budgets and looking at, you know, cuts, and we have to look at revenues and things of the like, but I think it would be a good idea for each one of you to sit with Mr. Kelly, and as much as we may not want to make certain cuts to budgets, we don't have a choice, because there's no way you can go to town meeting with that. You don't even have the revenue to cover that, and even if you did, you can't spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
That's out of control. So we gotta come up, we basically got $1.2 million that need to be cut to come in line with what we've averaged over the last 4 years, and even that number is 50% higher than what we bring in revenues, right? So your normal revenue stream for budgetary process is Prop 2.5 levy increase and new growth. And we always, right now, we're bringing in $543,000 in Prop 2.5 levy increase, and we've always seemed to use a number of roughly $250 in new growth, even though we have less new growth this year. So I've always said in the past years, you have roughly $800 to $850 in revenue to budget for, but yet we continue to spend $1.2 million. So it's unfortunate. We need to really get to work with the budgets, and we're gonna have to hammer out as much as we can on our side. The school department's doing everything they can on their side. We have Mr. Polanski coming in from Old Colony for a little bit of a budget discussion with him to see if he can offer up any more assistance with his budget, help out the towns. And we'll see where we end up with that conversation a little bit later in the meeting, but we got a lot of work to do to get down to 1.2, 1.3, to say the least.
As I said, this was a budget with too much fat. And so, but I wanted you folks to see what everybody requested, et cetera.
Tough decisions will be made. It's not gonna be easy, right? It's never easy, but,
No.
you know, the old saying, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? So,
Well, it's a tough year when the state's spending more on housing and taking care of
the southern
illegal
border people,
immigrants than they are taking care of the municipalities.
it's a shame, really, right? But neither here or there, we're stuck with the hand that we have, and we're just gonna have to try to hammer out as much as we can, and hopefully we'll get some cooperation, more cooperation from Old Colony, and we'll see where our local schools come in. So, you don't have anything else, Mr. Kelly?
Not on that.
Do you have any other
If-
comments, questions, concerns, rattling around?
If anybody needs any clarification on the warrant articles, please give me a buzz.
I am glad that we upped the revolving fund for the Council on Aging, so that we can, new directors planning on a lot of new programs and things of the like, and again, like you said, Mr. Kelly, it's nothing out of taxation, right? It's money that they raise that they're able to put into the revolving account to
Right.
be able to move forward and spend it on our seniors and do nice things for the seniors, take them on day trips and things of the like. That's all that revolving fund's there to do.
Correct.
So it's a great thing for us seniors.
And there, in my report, when we get to it, I'll talk about, there's some other programs that we're also looking at having see if there can be some programs that the seniors can access that is part of our health insurance program.
Just don't make the budget go up anymore, okay? We gotta go the other way. We gotta go down a significant.
No ready, only blowing.
Yeah, we'll figure out what we can do. You don't have anything else then, Mr. Kelly? So I'm gonna jump right over to number 2. We did the budget discussion, we followed up on the warrants, all part of the same package. I'm gonna jump into number 2, golf course. Dana's put some seasonal workers, requesting some seasonal workers, and it's a change to green fees. I had a quick conversation with Dana today. He's got some new software in there, he's loaded in the new rates. The golf committee actually voted the new rates. I spoke with him on the phone a week ago, yesterday, and told him I didn't have any problem with it. The board just needs to put it through a motion to approve his new rates. He said we're still very competitive in the marketplace. He feels very confident about the new rates, so is there a motion to approve the new green fee rates?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna recuse myself from the next conversation.
Very good. And then we have, would like to submit these candidates for consideration of employment at the Acushnet River Valley Golf Course. And for the bag boy positions, they will assist us greatly. As we are very busy, we can utilize young, ambitious individuals to give our customers the best experience possible. And he's got 2 individuals here also for weekend starter and rangers, and I spoke with him again today, and he said, I found it very strange. He doesn't think that he can remember a time where he's had, in years, that he's had individuals that would volunteer for weekend starters and rangers, so he's pretty excited to have those as well. It's all within the current budget, not the new budget moving forward, but the current budget that we're in. There's a little bit of scrambling around where how long we have people working for as young adults at the golf course, so he's gonna have them work 5.5, 6 hours and then dismiss them, and then you bring in the other one. I thought it's a great idea to broaden the pool of young individuals that we have over there and give more people opportunities. So with that said, I would need a motion to appoint Noah Martino as bag boy, Nathan Woner as bag boy, Jacob Woner as bag boy.
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
And for the weekend starter Rangers, he's got Jeffrey Schuster and Antonio Di Maderas.
Motion to appoint Jeffrey Schuster and Antonio Di Maderas as weekend starters / Rangers.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Kelly, can you notify Dana to let him know? Do whatever paperwork they need to get out there and start working.
All right.
The golf course has officially opened for business, and I'm glad that we've gotten some weather to cooperate. Obviously, the better the weather is, the better the season will go. Hopefully, the more revenue we can make from the golf course. Next, we have 4 reserve fund transfers. The first being from the town clerk's office. Folding machine no longer works and has become obsolete. The folding machine will increase efficiency with annual mailings and elections. And she's requesting the amount of $1,295. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The second one we have is Selectmen. Publication of 3 additional reports was delayed over the last few fiscal years, has caused us additional expense for this fiscal year. These reports have been completed in fiscal '24 and therefore need additional funding to print. And that amount is in the amount of $8,350. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next one comes from the police station. The police phone system crashed and resulted in the need of immediate technical support prior to determination of the need for a new system. This new system will support the police department and be able to connect to the phones at Town Hall. That amount is $5,849.98. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those-
That makes us all on the same system.
Yeah.
They're not on a separate system anymore.
No, on that dial-up network. The next one, IT, the previous email provider can no longer provide their services. With this new provider, the town will be provided with enhanced services. This cost brings this organization to negative $8,007.46, and the fiscal year budget will need this to be accounted for. And that amount is $11,694.10. Their motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
And we adjust this FY '25 appropriately.
Okay. All right. Number 4, letter of resignation. Please allow this letter to serve as official notification of my resignation from the Beautification Committee. While I love arranging the greens and the barrels in the center of town and assisting the Historical Committee with various projects, the Beautification Committee has always served in the town as humblest of ways, planting, weeding, and simply sprucing up the town. Although that committee is no longer something I can commit to, I look forward to continuing to serve my town. Brittany Patello, is there a motion to accept resignation?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a letter of interest from Chris D'Arujo. Dear Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee members, I am writing to express my strong interest in serving on our Town Finance Committee. As a dedicated resident invested in the welfare and prosperity of our community, I am eager to contribute my skills and expertise to ensure sound financial management and responsible fiscal policies for our town. With a blended background in healthcare through a bachelor's degree in science nursing and a master's degree in business administration, I bring a solid foundation of knowledge and commitment to serving the public. Having professional background in serving our community throughout our local healthcare systems with direct patient care and on a leadership level over the last decade, I have demonstrated a strong analytical ability, attention to detail, and collaborative approach to problem solving, all of which are essential qualities for effective committee work and ultimately our community. Furthermore, I believe my passion for community engagement, my desire to make a positive impact align closely with those who want to see our town continue to succeed. I am enthusiastic about the opportunity to work alongside fellow committee members and town officials to address financial challenges, prioritize budgetary allocations, and promote transparency and accountability in financial decision-making. I am confident that my skills, experience, and dedication make me well-suited to serve on the town's finance committee. I'm eager to contribute my efforts to support the financial well-being of our town. Thank you for considering my application. I look forward to the possibility of discussing how I can contribute to the committee further. Warm regards, Chris D'Aruscio. Gentlemen, I'll, full disclosure, this is an individual that's, I happen to know, friendly with my son Kevin. So, again, I can easily recuse myself on the vote. I don't really need to be part of it, but I don't think there's any kind of a conflict there, but just saying to keep things open and transparent.
You give it a stamp of approval as a candidate?
This kid, he's an
That's what I'm looking for. If you say he's
unbelievable,
good, then I'm good.
he's an unbelievable young man. He's extremely intelligent. I think he'd be a great addition to the FinCom. We've been short a member for quite some time, and trying to find somebody of this magnitude, I think he'll be a great addition.
Motion to appoint.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Cindy, can you reach out? He's got a phone number here. Can you please reach out to Chris and let him know that he needs to go see the town clerk?
Yes.
They gotta get sworn in, right? FinCom members? It's been a while. All right, thank you very much. I believe it's a full finance committee now.
Yeah, just one vacancy.
Been a long time since we've had a full FinCom, so that's great stuff. Stormwater bylaw, I'm gonna move around a little bit until we get to 5 o'clock for a poll hearing. Oof, we might have to take a little break and recess, but we'll jump right over to stormwater bylaw. Mr. Kelly has gone through the stormwater bylaw. It's been brought to my attention that Mr. Kelly set up a meeting with the chairman of planning, Mark Francois, the chairman of Board of Health, Dave Davinian, and chairman of Conservation Commission, Ryan Resendes. They met via a Zoom meeting to discuss the changes to the bylaw. I think they've put in some great input into the changes in the bylaw. There was a very little from what we've seen in the past. I don't think I have anything to change.
There is one issue, Mr. Chairman.
There is one issue, Mr. Kelly.
Page 14.
Okay, I'm just looking because I thought okay, so let me stop at page 10 of 17.
All right.
It says in red on page 10 of 17, gentlemen, right where it says formatted with the arrow pointing, it says any action by the agent must be ratified by the Stormwater Authority within 15 days. I'm just asking, is 15 an appropriate amount of time? Because they usually meet every 2 weeks, and if something falls out, is 15 good enough? Do we want to change it to 21? I don't know.
15 was the minimum that, they originally said 14. I advised 15 for being the minimum. If the
It's fine.
board wants to go to 30,
So let me ask you this. though.
No, I think that's
If they
too
don't
long.
meet-
If somebody puts a cease and desist, we don't want an applicant hanging out for a month
Well,
waiting
they
for a
could-
decision. I'm
well-
fine with the 15. We usually try to give a little more time from what we've done in the past with our discussion, so it rang a little bell to me saying, hey, we might want to talk about that. That's all.
they said 14, I said 15.
15 is, I'm fine with that. I don't know if we want to go to 21. I'm fine with the 15 days as long as it can happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it needs to be ratified. The only other thing, Mr. Kelly, I know that I'm 99% sure you made the change to why the word protest would be there. You changed the word to appeal, same page 10 on number 4.
Yeah,
If you go down a little bit further, it says file a protest, that needs to be changed to appeal, right?
it is.
No, in my version
This
it's
is a
not.
second protest.
No, the protest, if you look, protest, it's got a line through it.
Nope, down
There's
below.
another one right below it.
It uses the word that you scribbled out, so I said, well, maybe we need to change that one to appeal too.
4 lines down.
Go down a little bit further. Right after your word appeal, like 3 sentences down.
1, 2, 3.
It says, if the amount due is not received by the expiration of the time in which to file a protest, or
Yep.
within 30 days, that should be appeal.
Appeal.
Okay, boss?
Thank you.
I'm paying attention.
Four sets
What
of
what
eyes,
page did
just
you,
that.
what page did you, oh, hold on a minute. What page did you want me to jump to? 14?
14,
Okay, what's up?
that B, number 1,
Yeah.
second sentence. I don't know what it means. Mr. Davinian didn't know what it meant. Mr. Francois didn't know what it meant. Mr. Resendez didn't know what it meant.
I don't know, so that was my,
Well-
we need to have town council, and even, I talked to Kevin McHugh, our MS4, Jamie.
And
He
so
said
did
we
I.
need to check with the language on that, because I said, what the heck is adoption of this bylaw?
Yeah, but I checked with them after your conversation, and I said, can you parse it for me to explain it? I'm not an engineer.
This was in the old bylaw,
And he said,
but not the bylaw, not of this adoption of this
yeah,
bylaw.
but he said that he will see in other bylaws of other towns, he thinks is clearer language. And so that's the one sentence we have to work on this.
Yeah, he did say that he got this from other bylaws though, and I said the same thing. I mean, I get what.
Totally confused.
I do get, I guess, what it's saying. It's just, it would be better for it to be a little
Well,
clearer in normal terms, right?
The problem is, for A&Rs and backlots, it doesn't make sense. And he agreed, so that's why we're looking at it.
Yeah. I think this is more to show if you have two pieces of property, two separate pieces of property that are under the 40,000 square feet owned by the same person, people could use that as a way to bypass the stormwater permit. So in other words, I
Right.
think this is just to protect us from
Yeah,
offering a permit that doesn't need a stormwater permit, so they can actually develop two pieces of property that would exceed the 40,000.
but there's gotta be better language.
There's gotta be much better language than that.
Yeah, not only that is, well, depends on what zoning board of appeals does, right? Because they do approve lots smaller than 60,000 for the buildable lot size in the town of Acushnet. Other than the business village district is 60,000 square feet, right? So the zoning board of appeals has granted variances from the 60 if it fits in the, the neighborhood kind of thing, right? I think they're looking at one right now, to be honest with you, in doing that. So it's kind of,
And
it probably could come up. We gotta
Yeah.
look and see. We gotta get this moving though, because we need to get,
I've got a meeting coming up with planning board tomorrow. Just
yeah,
to
well,
talk
we
about it.
need Kevin McHugh to see if he can come up with better language than this and try to be, this is the one that I think I mentioned, I referenced last time, gentlemen, about being a little bit more homeowner friendly, right? Is where you don't wanna have somebody, and I think both you and I are aware of an individual in town, retired police officer, he was building a couple houses on his own little parcel of land, family estate, and he went through the ringer over stormwater, and you're on your own little compound type thing, and it's for family. I don't think I'm gonna build a house for my kid and have him drown me out, right? So I think it's more about that, is trying to be a little bit more homeowner friendly
Mhm.
versus, developer, so.
Yep,
I think that's the goal of that, try to get that, but I don't think that does it.
and I talked to town council, and the advice is to amend, the article should be to amend the whole bylaw.
Yeah, yep. It pretty much is a rewrite.
Yep.
And then if you jump to page 17 of 17, they did some good work. The three chairmen did some good work. We just gotta check with council to make sure we can do what we're doing with the mention of large scale,
Yep,
right? But they did some good work on section 2, minimum design criteria, in number C. They changed it from 4 feet to 2 feet ground, from separation of groundwater. And then down below, it says anything of 5 lots or greater needs to keep the 4 feet separation from groundwater.
or.
Or
the-
mounding, they need the mound, right?
Or the solar fields.
Correct. So I think that's really good advice, because it's, you know, it's difficult to, but you need some, remember I brought it up with Kevin McHugh, some freaking separation from groundwater because of the one that flooded everybody out.
Yep.
I don't believe they did that engineering properly, even though it went through, it was all done through planning in the previous years. But I think that touches base pretty well, and protects the residents, so I think it's pretty good work right there. We just need some clarification, Jamie, on 14 of 17, right?
Right, from Mr.
But everything
McHugh.
else looks good.
All right,
Nice to have that done.
yep.
I got some time. So, any other questions, comments on the stormwater bylaw? Okay, we're gonna jump right over to the MOA matter poison. It's already something that we've discussed in the past. Mr. Kelly added some language, subject to appropriation, then on number 4, and then subject to appropriation by town meeting, which all of our salaries need to be approved by town meeting, so. Oh, number 9, Jamie, termination. First sentence, I don't know if you're having a party or who's having a party, but it says the term of this agreement may be terminated by my party.
By any,
Either party, right?
any party.
Any party, for any reason, right? So, if you wanna just,
Well, if it's a party, it's gotta be at your house.
Dave's got a pool. Summertime. So, gentlemen, are you good with this?
Yep.
Okay, motion to approve.
So
All right.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. So that beats that horse. Snowplow attendance, let me just keep jumping around.
This was necessary, Mr. Chairman. The interim accountant had an issue with the not with the program, but with the documents that were used that the plow drivers or the contractors signed versus the actual motion that was made. So we put together a motion that will cover all the concerns and not have us flagged by the auditor. It seems very wordy, but I decided that belt and suspenders are better than having them come back at us later.
I agree, and we can't afford to lose any of our plow drivers, so I appreciate that. Mr. Hinckley, you have it?
Yep. I move to amend and/or replace the motion made on September 26, 2023 concerning perfect attendance bonus for snowplow drivers by offering, in addition to an incentive of $5 above the Mass DOT base rate, a perfect attendance of $1,000 bonus for every contractual snowplow driver, whether working independently or for a contractor, to be paid for at the end of the snowplow season, with the understanding that a contractor may be paid for each truck. In other words, more than one bonus, a bonus for each truck with perfect attendance.
There a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
So, that checks off that. All right, we got 15 minutes before we have to do our public hearing, I think.
Town administrator's report?
Oh, sure. You want to do that now, Mr. Kelly?
15 minutes?
Sure, I can get that done in 15 minutes.
Okay, boss.
All right, the town planner, you saw the MOA. The assistant town accountant, we're having discussions whether we go full-time, part-time. Technology administrator, we just received a resume of an individual who's a retiree that is interested in the position. Town accountant, we received a resume that we're doing an interview on Thursday that looks promising. Full-time custodian, we do not have any contract custodial services anymore for all our buildings except the police station. I'm asking that we hire a custodian for the end of the fiscal year and then the beginning of next year. And that'll fill our gap. Conservation agent, we have no one applying for the part-time or the full-time, full-time planner slash conservation, but we've entered discussions with other communities to do a similar situation with the town planner.
Can we expedite that conversation, because I know there's some frustration amongst the conservation committee. It's very difficult for those working people to be, doing site visits and complaints during the day, so if we can't, maybe we ought to just run another part-time ad on MMA, throw it out there again as in a good faith attempt. It's only $50 or $30, whatever it is for an ad. Get it out there and see if we have anything going, so we can have a good faith attempt. I don't want to lose committee members over aggravation and frustration. I think that's pretty much where we're starting to enter that tipping point. And I think it's very unfair to our committee members that there's strains being put on them. So if we can get an advertisement out ASAP for a conservation agent, part-time, see what we get, if we get anything, at least we're making a good attempt to trying to fill that position, and not, we can be talking with other communities to see if we can use this for now.
I also have an appointment to go up and talk to Jeff Walker up at Serpent and see if, since they owe us some staff time, whether we could get a staff person on a project-by-project basis for some of the major projects at the.
Yeah, that's fine. We need somebody part-time though, no matter what.
Oh,
We've all
yes.
agreed, as when we had a meeting in the past, this board and the chairman of all the other, we all agree we need at least a part-time conservation agent. It's very difficult when the phone's ringing. You have the secretary up there, she can't take on that additional responsibility. The chairman's out of town working a lot. He just can't get to sites in time. We need somebody to be able to pick up the phone and make the phone call and get out there. And I mean, it's, the money's there.
It's not just
We
us.
can't go any lower than a part-time position, right? We've already cut it from a full-time to a part-time.
Yep.
So please advertise.
Okay. Treasurer collector, the FY23 tax title. Notices have been mailed, are being mailed the 22nd. Tax takings will be May 6th. 23 parcels. The amount is $49,000. Motor vehicle second commitment, that's a newly registered, will be is mailed April 12th. The value is approximately $210,000.
That's what we have in delinquents.
No, that's the new purchase.
Oh, new purchases, that's the amount. So there's new excise tax being committed to be
Correct.
sent out for that collection, I get you. Okay.
The books have been reconciled through March. The audit is scheduled with the publishing date of June 30th, and we will be meeting with Hilltop with the school department on the HVAC issues and the impact on bonding.
Okay.
COA building, the $40,000 earmark. Water heater, bathroom fixtures, plumbing, $16,500. The walls were removed, the plumbing's installed. Our maintenance staff are going down to fix the sheetrock that the plumbers ripped out. And that will all be accomplished. The only thing left on the doors are the touch plate and the electricity, and that is Mr. Corrigan, and Lucas will be taking care of that. Hopefully we'll have some good weather in a row and we'll be able to do it. Roof gutters and downspouts, we have a proposal of $8,100, and so we should be able to do that. There's the New Bedford Fairhaven Acushnet public health nurse wants to run a diabetic education program. Meetings first weekly, then monthly at our COA. I've also talked to our health insurance because there's a big push by our health insurer for our workers on diabetic, and they might be able to provide this program with their handouts, et cetera, that type of thing, documentation. So it would be nice to have the two working together. And the COA board is reviewing the building use policy, which is very out of date. Public Works, Tootle Lane. I've talked to our insurance agent, and our workers' comp insurance will attach for our DPW workers if and when we're repairing Tootle Lane in Fairhaven. So we just wanted to make sure and cover that and give them notice. The budget we've talked about, and you can see some of the increases and budget busters there. And that's my report.
Okay. I think number 7, the regional, that 55 bucks has gotta go.
Yeah, it's tough.
With that deficit of 1.4 million, it's that $55.
Even though it's an assessment.
We'll get there. We're getting there. All right, so that's that.
Did I make 15 minutes?
No,
Huh?
I figured you would, but nope. It's all right.
I have one of these.
Yeah. Well, been off for 15 years.
Well, I was losing my voice. I had to yell at somebody for an hour today.
Talk slowly about selectmen's announcements, I guess.
Yeah. How slow do you want me to talk? No, I can take care of it. Give me a couple of minutes, I'll declare it. But, is there anything on the selectmen's announcements while we're...
I got a couple.
You do?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Mostly
you go.
pertaining to the same stuff. I got to hang out with the Eagle Scouts once again last weekend,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was a really nice ceremony. It was nice to see 3 young men obtain the highest rank you can in scouting. Lots of people were there. Rep Schmidt joined us. It was a good time, and they're already possibly going to have 5 others going up for a review in the next year.
Wow.
So, Mr. Cody and the rest of the administration of the Troop 11 do a really fine job at producing a very good group of fine young gentlemen. And every one of them was respectful, and you could tell that they really put some dedication into scouting and their community. So I just wanted to share that. It was a good time. I brought my kids with me, and they were a little confused on why people were wearing uniforms, but they had a good time.
Yeah.
They had a good time, so
Good.
it was a nice experience.
Good. Anything else?
Nope.
So let me just take a minute, I'm gonna actually, we'll go back to the warrant review, old business number 4. There's, this discussion, we haven't had a lot of it out there. We've talked about it in the past, about Slocum Street project. And funding, we got a lot of ARPA money. We're looking for more if it's available from ARPA funding. And we also discussed, because of the cost of the project, talking to Rep Strauss and Rep Schmidt on releasing the transportation, I think it's 1.5 million in transportation bond bill that's been sitting there since 2015. If you wouldn't mind, Selectman Wone, I know you have a great relationship with both of our reps, if you wouldn't mind, get in touch with them.
See if we can have some more money while we're at it.
Whatever we can, but Jamie was trying to get them both in, and sometimes it's difficult to get them both in. If you could reach out to the 2 offices and see what they can do about getting that money released for us, it would be nice to show the town residents that we have this much money, and I know that we're gonna be asking for a decent amount of money from the infrastructure fund as well, if we need to use it, right? But if we can get that 1.5 released and on top of the ARPA funding that we have, perhaps that we're gonna ask for a big amount from the infrastructure fund, but if we don't need to use it, we can then go back and return it, right, without using it, so.
Do we have, like, up-to-date engineering plans as of yet from Woodward and Curran?
Yeah, it's going out, they're trying to get it out to bid so that we can know a better idea of what the actual project cost is gonna come in for
I
bid.
can, I'll coordinate with you and the staffs on that.
If you could, work with him and get that going, that conversation going. I just got a lot of things I'm doing right now, and we've wrapped up some, under Selectmen's announcements. I'll go back underneath of that real quick, and Mr. Kelly and I and Town Council have wrapped up negotiations with United Steelworkers, so we're just waiting for a
MOA.
good copy to come from, I think we might be getting that from Town Council tomorrow or the next day for review. We'll pass that on to the union as well.
I talked to him today, and he's said by close of business tomorrow.
So, looks to be a pretty good contract for the town. Hopefully we'll be able to get something done before town meeting with that. I don't think it'll be a huge cost, that's for sure. Worth a couple of years, but we'll talk about it once we get a copy of it, right? We'll do something in executive session to discuss that. So, be it as it may, as chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I will declare at 5 PM, we have a Verizon hearing, proposed request for permission to install one Joe pole to be labeled 182/15.25 on the east side of Wing Lane, which will be approximately 365 southerly from the center line of Pagot Street. The new pole will be installed in line with an approximately 87 feet south of the existing pole 182 5/15 and approximately 84 north of the existing pole 182/15.5. The installation of this pole is being requested by Eversource to support the existing pole line leading to their property at 101 Wing Lane. Correction from the agenda. It says Wing Street, it's Wing Lane. We have anyone? Sir?
I'm David Topham with Science Engineering representing Verizon on this.
Okay.
We also have a representative from Verizon.
If you have questions about double poles, that's why I was asked to be here, so I'm happy to take those questions if you wanna go first.
What
or-
kind of pole is that anyway?
Identify.
We're in a poll hearing right now, so Jamie, do we have to open the whole, the hearing?
Yes.
Is there a motion to open the poll hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now the hearing is technically open for discussion, so we'll discuss the poll setting first. Sir, you want to come to the podium, please, right here?
Sure.
Announce who you are and who you're representing.
Yep. I'm David Topham with Science Engineering representing Verizon. You just read the petition, I thank you. I have the same thing, which if you'd like me to read it, I will.
No, sir.
Okay.
We have a little map.
Yep.
It looks like, where those dotted lines are property lines, it looks like it's outside of a property line.
It's right
I
on
don't
the
think
street
there's,
side.
I don't know if anybody's at 62 Wing Lane.
I am.
You're at 62 Wing Lane, okay. Let this gentleman just explain why the pole.
I don't have a map on my letter, so,
Oh, you want mine?
sure,
Yeah. You can have this one.
that'd be great.
So you can check out where the pole is.
I have a hunch of where it is, but.
Yeah, there is a stake up there, I can show it.
Well,
on the
it's a
map.
pole, P25 or something like that.
Can we have it from the,
That
Yeah.
podium spot right there.
Yeah,
is
that's
the new
what-
pole.
yeah.
Just let him explain the map.
Okay, and the ones on either side, the circles, are the existing poles.
It's down here, okay.
Yeah.
And I live on 67 Wing Lane, right across the street from her.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I see.
I'm right next to the,
Okay.
to the
I'll ask for a butter's comment and once I'm done with this gentleman. Okay? So I'm sorry, sir.
I did make a site visit, verified that the measurements are correct.
That's great.
We are setting the pole because it's our pole set area for Eversource. After we set the pole, Eversource is on their way. I don't know what they engineered out there, but if you've been through the neighborhood, everything's been upgraded, all the poles to 50-footers.
I was there the other day, actually.
Yeah. The 50-footers tell me that they're probably upgrading the voltage, maybe because of the solar farm.
I think it's because of the substation that's out there on Wing Lane.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of work going on out there, as you know.
Yep, and they have a substation
Right.
on the right side of the Wing Road.
Yeah.
So,
It's a very routine upgrade, as far as I can see.
good. All right, thank you. The abutters, any questions, comments, concerns?
No, actually, it's supposed to be something about, extra safety down there for
What is
firefighters.
the poles initially gonna do there? I mean, why-
It will give them more road clearance with the high voltage lines.
Yeah.
They're-
Road clearance.
Yeah.
It's taller pole.
It's all,
Yeah,
they're 50-foot poles they're putting out there. Those are,
Oh, I
Yeah,
know
that's
that the 50 poles,
Right.
Yeah.
they put the poles out there.
Yeah,
normally they're 45s. Because of
Yeah,
the
that's-
increased voltage, they need the
Sure.
clearance.
yeah, don't bother me any.
If you notice down Hathaway Road and then down Wing, I was
Right,
just
yeah,
down in
yeah.
your neighborhood, I was just there literally a few
Yeah,
days ago, by the solar fields, and I went down to the power station, and I was checking things out. You notice they've already lined the road with higher poles.
Yeah.
This is an additional support pole that will go in between those two poles, right?
Sure.
It's probably too much of a distance between those two pole settings, and they're putting up a third in between. It's like 87 feet apart.
Right,
It's for support, so.
He's only for support. There ain't gonna be no Verizon towers going on over there or anything like that, right? How about lighting in the neighborhood? Lighting is very terrible over there at the end because.
yeah, but that's nothing to do with them.
No, I know.
Yeah, so I don't have lighting. We have a lot of complaints in a lot of different places, and it's very difficult for us to continue setting lamps on poles where they're not normally there. It's just, we usually set lights on, we usually put that in front of the safety committee, and we'll usually do it at an intersection or a dangerous curve, right? And that's pretty much all we'll
You know
set.
that-
new
Well,
lamps.
we lived there. We were the last two at the end of the street. Well, there's the houses in the woods in there. But
Yep,
there's a lot of people, a lot of hanging around over there. There's
Every night in the access
syringes
road?
out there. There's all kinds out there because it's totally dark out there.
Yeah.
And it's Verizon property. It should be lit up.
Eversource.
Eversource.
Eversource owns the substation
Right.
parcel,
Yes,
right? And I get what you're alluding to is the people are going down that little side road,
Yep.
and then they're hanging out over there.
yeah,
Well,
I
they're
know-
hanging out everywhere over there. Well, they have a little side road that goes down before the solar panels on the left side. On the right side, it's just a road that goes all the way into the substation.
that's the
Yep.
access.
And everybody goes in there, they do whatever they want, they dump, they do all kinds of stuff. In the beginning, when all of that was started, with that, they were supposed to put a fence around it in the front and all that, and Eversource never
So they
did that.
put there's fencing around the solar arrays.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
That's not the solar arrays
About
problem,
the
that's,
open field that where the people are, where the people can get into.
if there's people hanging out there, maybe we should call the police
Oh,
department.
I've done that many times.
I'm tired of that.
Huh?
They-
Tired of that, and
by
I
the
even
time
went
they
out
get
there and kicked them out of
they're
there.
gone. So,
But that's not my job.
but it's a problem, but there's no
Yeah.
cameras. I know, I talked to the solar people a long time ago, and I asked them about putting a camera. He says he's gonna put a camera, but he's not done that yet, so I don't know, I could
They
call him
said
again.
they were
but-
gonna put cameras up, but I don't see a camera around anywhere.
There isn't one. But
I'm
I
surprised
call the solar-
I'm surprised Eversource doesn't have cameras on their substation. You would think you would want that.
Well, yeah, that.
And it was so dark there that, at one time they were doing some work there, and I talked to the people from Eversource that were doing the work about putting the light up where the first solar is on the right side next to my house at 67. And 3 days later, there was a light put up,
Yeah.
right at the end there.
Which is
But
great.
from there on, there's nothing. It's just totally dark. People do whatever they want out there. They're racing up and down the street in the middle of the night, midnight, or whatever. But, you know, again, we're sick of calling the cops.
You can't
By
catch them.
the time the cops get there, they're gone.
It's sweet.
Nothing happens.
It's not worth talking about.
Again, no,
No,
it
it
is worth
is.
talking about because we never did. We never came to the meetings, we never talked about it. We just let them do whatever they wanted there. It's always a mess. You go out there and you pick up all the rubbish around there because people are hanging around. You pick up the needles. I pick up the needles.
I'm the bag lady of Wing Lane.
Nah, you're a good lady.
I pick it up for the.
The problem is,
Because we never came here, but now I'm here and I'm gonna
I'm just
speak my.
curious about this whole thing, and I'm kind of hoping this makes us a little bit safer, which would be nice.
You know, we can have a conversation with Eversource and see if they can put another light down by their entrance.
Lighting is very
Their
important.
entrance,
Another
that would
light
be
in
nice down there for
between.
them, yes, because it would light the whole.
We have
thing
a,
up.
the good news is the town of Acushnet has a good relationship with Eversource, so.
Yeah.
like the old commercial, Anthony.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, when I
Well, we
asked.
do too, we see them, we're good with them.
When I asked them about the light, they said there's nothing we can do, the town pays for the lighting on the streets. Then all of
The
a
town
sudden,
owns the
yeah, the
poles,
town,
right?
town owns.
No, the town doesn't own any poles.
Oh, they don't?
That's why they're here asking permission to put a pole in.
Oh,
So
I
who
thought,
pays, who pays for the electric,
We own, the town of Acushnet owns the street lamps, that's it.
oh,
right,
okay.
that's what I
That's what
wanted,
it's-
was
he
a
must
light
have
on
meant,
the
yeah.
street lamp. And
I
they said,
I
"No,
know,
you have to
I
talk
know,
to
the
town."
problem is we need to stop talking because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I know.
So I was just trying to be curious to answer your questions, and I'm just gonna end with this. The problem is once I do something for one person, I got 100 other people beating down the door asking for a street lamp near their house.
Yeah, but guess what? We
We're the
live
only
there,
ones.
you know.
No, I get what you're saying, I'm just saying, as soon as
Yeah,
we
I
put
know.
one over by your house, another 100 people are gonna come beat down the door and say, hey, I need a lamp over here, and we've already had that request from us, and there's a policy that the town has where if we're gonna set a new lamp, it's usually at a curve, a dangerous curve, or at an intersection where there's no lighting. That's pretty much all we do. So I could have a conversation with Eversource and see if they would wanna put up a lamp over by their entrance road. Maybe that'll deter the people that are doing what they're doing, but if there's a lamp by your house, there's probably only, not even a quad, there's probably, I'm gonna say 1,500 feet from where your property is to where Eversource's entrance is on the right-hand side. I don't know if another lamp 1,500 feet's gonna stop these people from doing what they're doing, other than you'll be able to see them from your window.
Yeah, and at the end, at the end, where it goes into the stations, they have a gate there. Eversource has a gate there.
Yeah. They
Once
both-
it's-
So that gate that you're talking about is not Eversource, that's PJ Keating's gate.
Oh, it is?
Oh,
There's no gate, the only fencing Eversource has is around the substation,
Right.
right?
Okay, so
That's in the
it's
back.
gates. Oh,
The
didn't know
gate, when
that.
you go into that road off to the right and you look to the left, and you're gonna see a giant cement pillar behind the gate,
Yeah.
that's the entrance to the high tension lines for PJ Keating. That's
Oh.
PJ Keating's property.
Wow,
Eversource has an easement going down the high tension lines all the way through, but that gate belongs, and that fencing belongs to PJ Keating.
Okay.
okay, sorry, thank you.
No problems. No problem. All right. So is there a motion to approve the poll setting as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, Michelle Chinquagrano, Verizon Government Affairs. So I
Welcome.
know that there are some questions regarding some double poles in the town, so I'm happy to,
So again, we've beaten up Eversource as much as we can, and only to find out that all of their equipment's been transferred off of poles, right? I know there's a lot of problems in a lot of municipalities across the Commonwealth with double poles. I spoke with Anthony from Eversource today, and he's told me that all the poles that are being set down Hathaway Road, and I even think Wing Road, that ain't good for like 2 years out, that project. And
Wing
you're
Lane,
already,
right?
and you're already out there setting poles when they're not ready to go. So it's kind of, you know, Verizon's out there setting poles 2 years in advance when they ain't gonna do anything with those poles for another 2 years. So those poles, now it tells me those poles are gonna sit there for 2 years or a year and a half. The problem that the board really has in the past is all the poles, there's one right outside of here, Main Street, and the bottom of the pole's cut off right at a kid's face height, right? And you left it there strapped to the other pole, okay? That's unacceptable, it's a safety issue. Okay? You have that same practice going on Middle Road, Birch Street, I've named it before, the Eversource. It's, Birch Street is a side street off Middle Road. There's 2 poles right at the bottom of my neighborhood that are the same thing, been strapped up there for God knows how long, probably a year. And then there's one on Cox Street and Nye Lane that's been sitting stagnant, chopped off as well, for like a year. I think anybody would say a year, 6 months even, is too long for a pole to be sitting strapped up like that, right? And when I drive by the poles, after we've given Eversource to run around at that podium, I've driven around after to confirm that we were being told the truth, and we are, because all of Eversource's equipment has been moved to the new pole, and the only thing that's sitting on the old pole is Verizon and Comcast. So that's a major problem for the town and the townspeople. We get a lot of complaints about double poles, taking down our lamp and leaving it on the ground, somebody steals it, we're out that cost and things of the like. We would just like a better line of communication from Verizon to say, there's a lamp on this pole, contact the town, we'll be in town on XYZ day, figure out when you can get your contractor to come and remove the lamp. We'll set it on the ground, let him reset it onto the pole. I don't think the town's being unreasonable when we're asking you to get rid of a pole that's a danger to our people, that's been sitting there for well over a year, or even 6 months is too long. If Eversource gets their equipment moved over, I don't see why Verizon can't do the same within a reasonable amount of time.
Sure. Can I start to answer some of
You
your
can,
questions?
I just wanted to give you the
No,
gist of our
absolutely.
complaints and what
Yeah.
we've been dealing with. We've never had an opportunity to have somebody from Verizon to listen to our complaints. We just beat up on Eversource, so it's nice for you to come in and
Yeah.
chat with us.
Well, thank you. And I always look for open lines of communication with all the communities that I interact with. I can send you a double poll report every month if that's something that you want to see. So currently, there's 104 double polls that we have listed in our database, which is called Engines, which is the National Joint Utilities Notification Database. So in that, every time we place a poll, we put it in this database. Eversource is always the first to go to transfer their lines on the primary and the secondary. Then there are some attaches in between. Could be fire alarm, it could be some sort of other fiber if you have open cape, etc. Then it's Comcast, and then lastly it's Verizon. So Verizon's always the last to transfer, and when we're the last to transfer, we remove the double pole. I will address the cut and kicks with my construction department because they should not be doing it in an unsafe manner. It should be high enough up that it would not be in the way when anybody walks by. So I will review that with them. So right now in the database with the 104 double polls, there's 94 of them that Eversource has not said that they've completed. So they're sitting in their bucket, waiting for them to, it looks to us, to transfer the service. I was hoping they would actually be here, because I hate to throw a fellow utility under the bus, right? You know, we can kind of
He
work
said
that
you were
out.
gonna do it.
Of course he did, right?
And I said, I'm not gonna allow that to happen, because they've been very good to us. It just, it's very frustrating
It
when
is.
it's everybody's finger pointing, right? It's-
Absolutely.
If it's Verizon's pole, I would assume that it would be your responsibility to get the other utilities out there to move the wires or cables or whatever it may be, so that you can remove that pole.
Yeah, so the JO, when you were talking about the JO pole, they're all jointly owned. Verizon and Eversource own these poles all together, the two of us. So we have equal responsibility. It happens that in Acushnet, Verizon sets and removes the old poles. In some areas, it's Eversource that sets the poles and they remove the old poles. So we have a difference, you know, with all of our electric utilities on how we work that in our methods and procedures. So for us, you know, we're waiting for everyone, and I agree with you, a year, 2 years is too long. We do the work as we get the orders from Eversource. So if they've put in these orders and they've sent us the information to then create the jobs to go out and do these polls and add them to where they're doing their jobs, we are putting them in as we're receiving the orders. So if Eversource has something 2 years out, then I would hope that they would tell us and say, hey, don't do Hathaway first. That job's gonna be, you know, in 2026. We would know that. But as far as we know, we're just doing the jobs as they're received. because they need the work done. So that's what we have been doing for our engineering and construction departments.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you said 94 out of 104 are currently marked not
Eversource,
completed?
by Eversource.
Right, is that a
correct.
portal?
So it's, yeah, it is, it's a website, and I can send, you know, the
So,
town-
Mr. Kelly, if you can
Yes.
reach out to Anthony and say, hey, have you guys update the portal here? Because if it's just a simple communication breakdown, this could be resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, and I have the report in email, and I can forward it to you when I get back to the office, and you'll have the report and see where all the streets are and where everything is, and I've marked off, you know, it's by alphabetical order. There are codes in there, but I put a little key in there, so. And I do that with other municipalities too, and if it's something you want to see on a monthly or quarterly basis to see where your double poles are in the town, I'm happy to do that as well.
We have several hundred now double poles in the town of Acushnet. Hathaway Road, Wing Road,
Yep.
Main Street, they're all blowing all the way down Main Street. Last time I talked to my wiring inspector was probably 2 months ago, and he's the one that told me, he said, Kevin, you don't only have a couple of dozen poles, double poles anymore. You literally have a couple hundred double
Yeah.
poles now.
I mean,
And
if that
I-
person wants to contact me as well, if there are ones that we've missed, I'm happy to work with them if he tells me the streets, and I'll have my foreman go out and, you know, our inspector.
Did you mark down roughly 170 Middle Road? There's 2 poles right there. The Birch Street, Middle Road,
I have those right here, yep,
the Cox Street, Nyes Lane one.
yes. I
Those
have
are right
them.
off the top.
Those are
And
the
there's,
cotton
and there's some
kits.
further down Middle Road as well, but those are the ones that just, I mean, that's where I live on that side of town, although I drive everywhere in the town of Acushnet, and it'd just be impossible for me to log every one.
No, I absolutely understand, and normally they kind of go in a route, right? If they're doing an upgrade, we normally know the streets.
Down here on this side of town it is, the other side of town, it's just random poles that have been hit by a car.
Right.
An accident, and they've been sitting there for a year. I mean, I can't even, and Eversource has relocated all their wires.
Right.
So I don't know where that is.
It's everyone in between, right? So if they're stuck in between and there's a Crown Castle, an Extonet, a municipal fire, a light, any of those things hold up the entire process. So, but I'm happy to work with you and get
Okay.
those resolved, and especially the ones that are the cotton kicks that are, you know, unsafe. I'll work back with my foreman.
Mr. Kelly?
Not only work with us, if it's anything to do with the town, like an alarm system, or especially the street lights,
Sure.
because the contractors seem to take those down, leave them on the sidewalk or the side of the road, and never notify us that the work's being done on the poles.
Sure, I would, if you could, after this meeting, we can have a conversation, I can come back for a meeting, if you would provide the right contact numbers for my folks when they go out to do the work, to make a call and say that we're here, or we're gonna do this poll in 2 days, we're on the road, there's a light on it.
We have a separate the contractor that does light setting, lamp settings when something like this occurs, so I would think that we would need 48 hours notice. He can't just take one of his guys off the crew and say, okay, they're coming tomorrow, get off this job and go over there. But I think as a courteous thing, if we gave him 48 hours notice, he could call somebody and say, I need you to be in town with a bucket truck to throw the lamp, swap the lamp.
I mean, normally, we don't remove the streetlights unless it's an accident or something happened to the pole, and that's when they end up, right? Because we would then have a bucket for streetlight and the contractor to go in and transfer the streetlight as part of the entire transfer process. So if that's not happening, then we need to make sure that they have access to the database.
We were
and
told
designated.
that, you or Eversource would not touch our lamp.
We shouldn't be, unless it's an accident and something's fallen. And then normally what would happen is they would pull it down, tape it around.
I would like for you to touch the lamp and put it back on the pole so we don't have to pay for it.
Unfortunately, we can't do that. But yes, so normally the streetlight contractors, they will have a designation in engines. And then they should be notified that they are next to go. So it's kind of, you know.
Mr. Kelly?
Is there a protocol? Eversource is the top, you're the bottom, and there's all these,
Yeah, so it's usually
Entities
streetlight
in
is,
between.
usually streetlight space, if you look at it, is usually after electric. So after Eversource transfers, streetlight transfers, and then we'll have the other spaces. I don't know if you have any municipal fiber or fire alarm, Cat V, then Verizon's the lowest.
But do you give notice to all of those folks?
We give you notice as you're next to go. You get an email notification and you usually have 30 days to move your lines,
Yeah,
or before
it would
30
be
days.
good, since there are a number of, you've got the street light, but we do have town fiber optics, and we'd be good to know all of it at once instead of contacting us, because it takes us a while to get our contractors
Right.
to go out there.
So,
Well, you said it takes 30 days, but it's been 365
I
days.
agree, people
So,
don't always.
there's no communication coming to the town of Acushnet, that's the problem.
Exactly, and I will take that back, but when it's sitting in a bucket of Eversource for 385 days, no one else is gonna get notification until that completes.
I
So
got
it
it.
gets stuck in a certain bucket.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if your contractors that do your streetlights and those that do municipal fiber are the same people.
No.
Usually they're two different email addresses, but they would each have a considerable amount of time, a 30-day time to
But
move
if
them.
you also let us know, that way we could
Sure.
get on them.
Yeah, and I'll send you the reports, and then you'll be able to see what is gonna be next to go in those buckets and where they are.
And we can have your contact information.
Yeah, actually, you should already have it. I've been corresponding with Sydney, and that's how I got involved in this, so.
Well, she didn't say anything to us, so it's her fault. It's not Eversource's
Lies.
fault anymore, it's Sydney's fault.
Okay, Kevin.
But anyways, as long as we have your contact
Yeah.
now, we appreciate your time and coming in and listening to it.
No, you're welcome. I appreciate you inviting me to do this.
I think it's important that we're involved in that link of communications, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if there's any meetings that you want to have with Eversource here too, and I'm happy to do that as well. Again, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. It's definitely,
Well, we can have Anthony come in and you come in, and what's the pastry, Anthony?
Que nápoles, pastel de nápoles.
Yeah, but what about Comcast? Where are they in this conversation? Do you
Comcast
guys coordinate
has
with them, or-
nine that they had to transfer. So they're not joint pole owners, they are attachees. And
Okay.
we have a good relationship. I mean, normally what happens is Comcast is pretty good to like start moving the ball. So once they're done, that's when we'll get them. So we have one in our bucket right now. Comcast has 9. So what would happen is when they complete their 9, we'll say, oh, we have 10 now that we can transfer and remove double poles, and
Wondering
we'll do
if
them in bulk.
we've spoken with you, we've spoken with Anthony, is Comcast
Comcast
the
representative.
third,
I mean-
the third leg in the stool that we've got to,
I have to be
Bring it to-
honest, they aren't holding anything.
Got it, okay.
By these reports, they're not holding
Okay.
anything. So they
Fair
seem to be pretty
Okay.
timely.
Right.
We'll
Excellent.
contact you and put it
Okay,
together
wonderful.
with all of them.
Thanks, I
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Takes care of that.
get it 6, right?
6:30. Should- yeah. So the last thing we have on our agenda, request to have Mr. Polanski, Sarah Griffith is here. And
My name is Shirley Burke, I'm the chair of the...
I'm sorry, I remembered your first name, Shirley, but I just phased out the last name. Shirley Burke.
Yep,
She's
And I'm
she's been with
currently the
OC, she's been with OC for a long time. How many years, Shirley?
well, to be honest with you, I'm advancing age, I can't remember how many terms it is. So I think I'm about to start my 4th, so I'm beginning my 10th year.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, but it's enjoyable work.
Sure. So, Aaron, thank you for coming back in for some follow-up. I look at the packet, right, and as much as I thought I knew about Old Colony's budget process, I got confused. So I just have a couple of questions pertaining to the budget, because we discussed our budgets, and we're still $1.4 million in the hole. And obviously, your increase, it's, albeit not dramatically substantial, it's substantial compared to past years, so. The question that you have something?
2.4.
No, it's not 2.4. It's 1.4 over what we really have. Well, it depends on how you wanna look at it. So, when I when I look at your budget and I say, it's up 500 and, correct me if I'm wrong too, please. It's up 509,436, right?
I'd have to check the number, but I'll take your word for it.
I'm only using the difference from last year's.
509,436 is what I have.
Yep. Okay, okay. So, which isn't bad being a regional school, right? But then if I go to assessments, the total fiscal year 25 assessment, the assessments are up $587,033. So I just simply on that one particular matter, I said to myself, how can that be? If the budget's up 506, how can assessments exceed the budget, right? So I guess we'll start with that one question and see if we can get some clarification.
Sure.
Can you stand at the podium, please? And
Sure.
for the people on camera, Sarah?
Sure, yes, absolutely. Can I just see where it's going?
Yeah, I took notes and ran differentials just so we have them. On your own next.
Okay, so when you're talking about the increase in assessment, can you tell me which section of the assessment sheet that you're speaking about, please?
Yeah. So it's the total fiscal year 25 assessment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th line item down on your budget breakdown for town assessments. It says total fiscal year 25 assessment. And that equals, the difference between that number and last year's number is 587. So how is the budget up 506, but the assessments exceed the budget number? So it wouldn't make much sense if you just looking at it from my binoculars. You would think 506 and then evenly distribute that amongst the percentages of the 5-member towns. So something else is impacting that assessment.
Sure, it's Old Colony's revenue. So Old Colony is a regional school district. We use the statutory method for assessment. So the first application to our budget, our total budget, is any state aid that we will receive. So Chapter 70, Chapter 71, and any non-resident tuition that we receive and transportation reimbursement.
Okay.
So the major flux in our revenue for this year is that it is our last year using free town tuition. So we're not receiving non-resident tuition anymore. So our revenue, Old Colony's revenue, if everything was level funded as it is down about $400,000.
I'm sorry?
Our revenue stream, Old Colony's revenue, state aid, is down from last year, $400,000.
Okay.
So right from the beginning, before we even talk about an increase into our budget, our revenue has decreased as a school district. So
Okay.
we apply minimum local contribution at that point. Our member towns' minimum local contribution is $6.8 million. In total, our minimum local contribution district-wide, our member towns' contribution to our education is up $506,000. That is a little bit more than halfway down that page. There are 2 lines. One is assessment variance and the other one is minimum contribution variance.
Yeah, so the fiscal year 2024 minimum contribution, that's what the state says that you need to spend, correct?
Right, so as a whole, district-wide, we're at $506,000. And statutory method for assessment starts with minimum local contribution.
Okay.
So if
you look at that number, sticking with that minimum contribution,
Sure.
and you look at the fiscal year 2024 assessments, it's $1.955 million over minimum spending, right?
So for regional school districts, the statutory requirement shows at the top of the page the additional contribution in excess of minimum local contribution without transportation and equipment or capital and debt is $754,000.
Where's that 700?
That is the second line all the way over to the right.
Oh, that's the cumulative balance of all 5 member towns.
That is really what's remaining in our budget, that if we were going to talk about excess over a minimum contribution, transportation, debt, capital, that would be the number that we would be talking about. So when we talk about a COLA in excess of 2%, contractual obligations, any contracts that we have with vendors, that's where the remainder of that above minimum local contribution sits.
Okay, so,
Because we wouldn't cut the transportation or the capital debt out of Old Colony's budget.
it's all built into your budget, right?
Right, and it's not included as part of that minimum local contribution, that's an excess of minimum local contribution. Transportation, specifically because we receive our regional transportation reimbursement, which you see applied directly to the budget as a revenue source the following year. So it's not included in minimum local.
But when you do your budget, it's included, you have $970,000 in your transportation.
Yes,
And then every year, the state changes what your reimbursement is, right?
yes, it
So
fluctuates.
in fiscal year 2021, you had 96% reimbursement, 22, you had 90% reimbursement. Last year, 2023, you received 79.5 reimbursement.
Yes, and you
Right.
see those funds applied directly to the budget on the first page of the sheet.
Can you point me to that
Sure.
number,
Page
self
one.
reimbursement?
So on page 1 of the packet,
Yep.
down at the bottom under funds applied, Chapter 70 funding is directly off of the cherry sheet. It's the governor's number for Chapter 70.
Mhm.
The next one is school choice sending, which is funds that we have to pay for students to attend Chapter 74 programs at other schools that are not Old Colony, that live in the member towns. Chapter 71 funding is right now off of the cherry sheet, which is the governor's numbers for Chapter 71. That's regional transportation reimbursement. And then you will see the transportation fund offset, which is the excess Old Colony received over budget last year being applied to the FY25 budget. That is per Mass General Law.
So that 350, that's where I was getting a little screwed up.
Okay.
So I looked at the chapter 71 and I was trying to reason with myself saying then that's the 79, close enough to the 79.5% reimbursement you're applying from last year to this year?
So the Chapter 71 funding line, that line is next year's estimated reimbursement. We have not received that money yet. So this fiscal year, we'll receive those funds.
So that's 671, you're saying is next year, so you're
It's
just.
an estimated.
That's right, it's
It's an
just a
estimation.
guesstimation, right? Because
Right.
I just read to you the different reimbursements and they're all over the map, right? So
They are.
we did really good in
They
21
are.
and 22, but then they chopped you out the knees and said, hey, here's, 15% roughly,
Yeah.
15% less reimbursement on transportation.
Right.
So y'all looking at, when you put it, who calculates the chapter 71? Okay.
It's an estimate.
I know,
So
all right, so
I
it's
started
from your perspective, or the school's
Well,
perspective.
it's actually straight off of our end of year report. So if you go to our end of year report and you go to our Schedule 7, you will see Old Colony's actual expenses. That's where the number comes from to estimate what the following year's transportation reimbursement will be. When I started in 2014, common practice was to use 60%. It moved up a little bit. We started using 70%.
Yeah.
I really don't think that it's in anyone's best interest to use more than 70% at this time. So we have used that as our philosophy building the budget.
Okay.
However, if we receive in excess of 70%, the Mass General Law requires that we use those funds to directly offset the operating budget in the following fiscal year, and that is what that $350,000 is.
Ah,
And so next year, when we receive our Chapter 71, if we receive funding in excess of budget, that closes directly to the revolving account and is used the following fiscal year to help offset the budget. Basically,
so that 350 is basically what you have carried in the revolving from the excess percentages, because
Budget to actual.
you cap, or
Yes.
the school committee and yourself, and the
Yes.
superintendent, say to, like we do in the town with revenue numbers, there's certain
You
revenues that
plan.
we're not happy with exceeding a certain threshold.
Right.
I just got done talking about this at a
Right.
joint meeting, right?
Right.
And say it's dangerous if you get to a certain level
Yes.
of doing that. So you have
Yes.
that same practice where you say, 70% is the dead cutoff line, so right now, we're looking at $1 million, let's just round up.
Yes.
It's 970, but it's $1 million bucks, so you're anticipating getting reimbursed 700 grand next year,
Just about, yes, absolutely.
right? That's 70%
Yes.
roughly.
Which is
you
the
know.
rationale for this advocacy on behalf of Acushnet sent to a senator to advocate for a bill as recently as yesterday that fully funds regional transportation. But I want you to know that we're doing everything we can behind the scenes to advocate on behalf of all of our member towns, because if regional transportation goes up, the reimbursement,
Yeah,
there's a huge benefit to everybody.
sure.
So I just want you to see the email that was
Yeah,
sent.
no, so now I get the philosophy that you
methodology.
have a methodology where
Yes.
you say the same thing
Consistent.
Mr. Kelly and I were just doing
Yes.
several months back, looking at
Yes.
revenue streams, saying, everybody wants more money. And we say, there's a certain level where we're just not comfortable breaching that threshold because we never know what that revenue's gonna be. And if we give 80% and the following year you have a 10% shortfall,
Right.
guess who's piggybacking that? The taxpayers, right? So we're conservative, but
Yes.
people don't like us being conservative. But you really have to be, because you're actually protecting the taxpayers of the town by not letting them spend too much, right? And you have the same exact approach to transportation. Because I noticed last year you applied 150 last year.
Yes.
The transportation fund offset. So that's where I was getting screwed up. I'm looking at that and I'm saying,
Yeah.
how did we do $150 last year in the transportation fund offset,
Yeah.
right? And then this year we're allocating $350. It's because of that revolving fund. It's a buffer that's there
Yes.
to say we anticipate X, Y, and Z, right, for reimbursement.
Right.
If we don't come up, we can go into revolving fund and offset that money.
So DOR requires us to build a balanced budget, just like they require the town to. And this is one of the things that gets audited when we have our E&D done in the fall, our excess and deficiency calculation done. They want to see what did you budget, what was your actual, what was your excess. And specifically regional transportation reimbursement, our philosophy as a district, even though we contract the vendor and pay the bill, the reimbursement goes directly back to member towns via an offset of revenue prior to assessments. So yes, your methodology is exactly that. If we were to short fund regional transportation reimbursement, we would have to have a conversation among the budget subcommittee when those funds were short as to how we were going to, we can't have an unbalanced budget, just like you can. So DOR would come in and say, how are you planning on funding your shortfall in regional transportation reimbursement? Exactly.
Excellent. That's, so again, right now, where we're at,
Yes.
it's massive, right? I mean, honestly, I've been doing this for a long time, and when I see the town's budget deficit this year, I expressed concerns amongst my colleagues just a little while ago, is how the hell are we gonna collapse that, right, and get us back down to a reasonable amount of expenditure? We've been spending roughly 1.2 year over year, and even that's questionable in my mind, right, because of the other revenue streams that we keep using. And now we're looking at 2.4 million over what we spent last year, right? Just, it can't happen, we don't. So every dollar matters to us right now, whether it's 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever it may be. And I get the whole, we got more students staying in the population, and we're finally done weeding out when I was doing it back in 2005 to 10, I was a liaison for Old Colony for 5 years for FinCom. We always counted on that revenue stream from Freetown, right? And it was always like a couple of grand more than what all of our member towns were paying, roughly, give or take a few bucks, but that's what it was, and it was helpful for the budget process. We're in the last year of kicking that out of the pool, and we're stuck with what we have. The only other thing that we got is, like, I don't know if it's a school nutritionist that's inside the budget for like 70 grand. Can I ask why?
That's our food service director.
Can you put that, don't you have a revolving fund that you get reimbursed from the state, like our local schools do?
So our grant-funded lunch program, when I started at the school district in 2014, was operating in the negative. Did not have the ability to fund the director's salary. So the director's salary is in our operating budget. If it got to a point, and now we're in a healthy place, where we were operating at a safe surplus, we could potentially fund her salary. But as of right now, that would not be
Just because I
Grants
know
and
everything,
grants.
everything that's in that school lunch revolving account gets reimbursed from the state, including the meals, right?
Not everything, nope, not everything. You have to make sure your school lunch program is operating at a profit. So you get your lunches, reimbursable lunches paid for, but not everything is considered reimbursable for the school lunch program. You only receive the base funding for the number of meals that you sell. All of your operating costs have to fall within that. So you can't operate your school lunch program at a deficit, or the general fund has to fund it.
Just because some of the conversations I've had with other people from other districts,
Mhm.
they say they have that school, like a lunch revolving,
We do have a school
Account,
lunch revolving
and the
account.
meals are reimbursed, and they've gotten actually so much money in it that they're buying new cafeteria equipment and things of the like with that kind of money.
We have
So-
a small surplus at this time, but we do not have a surplus that could safely fund the director's salary year after year, not at this time.
Right, right.
If we did, we would incorporate it into the lunch program. At other school districts I've worked for, it's been able to pay for the director's salary and it's been able to operate at a profit. But if the program operates at a loss, it gets charged to the general fund.
Mhm. Okay. So Aaron, I guess my last hurrah is gonna be is, we got some new revenue numbers from the state, right?
Yes.
And we were fortunate to get a little bit of extra money for Old Colony, not like y'all let us asking for transportation, but it's an additional 40,922, which our share would be almost 14,000
Are you
bucks.
talking about the House? The vote at the House level? Yeah.
So I mean, it's 14,000 bucks that we could use. So I don't know if there's anything that you folks could do and take a look at that number and maybe come back to your member towns and saying, hey, we've done, maybe you can do something else somewhere else and try to squeeze the dime a little bit more. I know it's tough, but we're at a point in Acushnet, and I think a lot of municipalities are, I don't think there's any more blood to squeeze out of a rock. And any little bit will help. And that's all I'm asking for. And I appreciate you folks coming in and doing that explanation and bringing my mindset back to all of this, because I have old paperwork, as you know. I have one over here from 2012, and I go back to my notes, and I just went bonkers Sunday night after I came home from a birthday party, and I literally spent 3.5, 4 hours looking at this from Old Colony, and I just went crazy doing it. I mean, I got overwhelmed with just looking at things, and I said, you know what, it's good that we're gonna have them back in, have a little bit of dialogue. I think it's good for the FinCom, I'm sure they're gonna watch this as well. I think it's good for Mr. Kelly and the board members to really understand everything that's going on. I'm very involved in numbers, and I don't like when I look at a number and I don't understand that number.
Sure.
I like to just, I'm analytical, right? I want to break everything
I
out and
understand.
figure out, I want to understand exactly what it is. And I think you did a great job helping me understand that. And I think to the folks at home as well that, look at things and say,
I think we have to think about it not just for this year, but also next year, because the prospectus for next year is similar or even more bleak. That's what's coming
I
our
know.
way. So it's real. We try to keep our finger on the pulse. I want to reassure you that every time we come to the table, our goal is A, transparency, B, research, right? Which is why I sent some numbers out ahead of time, because we don't come to the table and throw numbers out randomly. Last year, we had a much higher increase, to be quite honest, from a percentage standpoint. But when we ran the numbers and saw the comps, we felt comfortable running those numbers. This year, we ran the comps ahead of time. I sit on the Old Colony Roundtable of Superintendents. I sent a survey out. I got feedback. We wanted to come to you from an educated perspective. The same thing held true in negotiations. We sent out information and gathered information from 48 different towns, from all of our member towns, from municipalities. Jamie gave us all of the municipal information we needed from Acushnet, because we wanted to make sure, we never want to be the highest,
right.
right?
It's kind of our philosophy too,
Yeah,
right?
and we really didn't want to be the lowest, because the teachers just came out of a 2-2-1.
Right.
And so our negotiations, as you may have read on signs locally,
Yeah.
weren't always easy. And we got to a place where we felt we did the right thing for our teachers and simultaneously tried to do the right thing for our towns.
Sure.
So I just want you to know that a lot goes into the process behind the scenes. We appreciate the opportunity to provide additional clarification, and we will continue to do everything we can on behalf of all of our member towns.
It's just been, this year's been I mean, you wanna talk about a level of depression, right? I look at the numbers, I spent a lot of time last night as well, looking at the budget numbers, and I don't know what the answer's gonna be. I mean, I have some ideas to squeeze some of that blood out of the rock, but trying to find, $1.4 million, I don't know. I don't know what to say. The townspeople and the taxpayers got their hands full June 3rd at town meeting, right? They're the ultimate decision makers. We gotta figure it out. I do appreciate the efforts that the school committee makes, and 3.67, including your insurance costs, I think is a pretty good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also want you to know, we consider everybody partners in this process. So when we met with the FinCom and when we create those numbers, we're looking to try and get that number low out of the gate so that it never feels like a back and forth. Because our goal is to say, is this palatable? And if someone says no, then our goal is to pull that number down before we ever get to you. Because that's really important. It should never be, well, let's just pull it a little bit more, let's just pull it a little bit more. That's not really the answer. The answer is, where can we get it so that it feels palatable for everyone? And that's why there's the research and the dialogue too.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Just one more question, Sarah?
Can I just
Yeah,
add to your comment about the funding and state aid? Once the budget is complete at the state level, whatever the final Chapter 70 spreadsheet is, that will be the funding for Chapter 70 for the school district. And so if that equals lesser assessment, we will recertify the lesser assessment. Obviously, if we have another revenue stream, whether it's $40,000 or $10,000, we will apply whatever revenues we can apply to this budget that you see here. So I just want you to know that if we end up getting more Chapter 70 funding, if final Chapter 70 is complete and that is the funding amount, we will recertify assessments lower, absolutely. And it will be proportional based on this assessment sheet that you see here in front of you.
So if that house number sticks,
Right.
your number drops. If that house number, if the Senate comes in lower than the house number, your number drops again, right?
We just don't know right now
So
because of
we
where
will-
they're
we will-
at.
Of course, we would.
I got excited for $14,000, Sarah. What do you want me to say? I mean, really?
I get excited for $14,000.
It's 14 grand, right? And
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, it's sad that we have to sit here and talk about $14,000, right? But it's not $14,000, it's $1.4 million
It
for
is,
us,
for you,
right?
right.
So like I said, every dollar right now matters, because that 14 grand could be a full-time person being cut to a part-time person in this town, right? And that's where we're at, unfortunately. And I think the same thing's gonna happen with school departments, right? You just can't keep going at the rate we're going, right? As good of a job as we're doing, I'd like to think so anyway. There's that breaking point, and I think we're pretty damn close to the end, where tough decisions are gonna be made. It's unfortunate, but I don't know what else to say about it, really. I wish I had better answers, right? I wish I had the Powerball for $1 billion that just went out, and, I could give you, all your capital needs and say, here, take this off the backs of all the communities for the next 5 years, right? Leave them alone. So that one last question that I do have,
Yeah.
the capital, I guess it's transportation and equipment?
Mhm.
No, capital debt and spending,
Yes.
right? That number,
Mm-hmm.
it's gone up.
Yes.
Actually, I'm sorry. Fixed charges on the first page, 2,562,000. And I know this is a long time ago, 12 years ago.
Okay.
Fiscal year 2012 was 1.224.
Oh, yeah.
So it's basically doubled.
Yeah.
What is the fixed charges?
Insurance. Those are insurance programs. Insurance, payroll taxes,
Retirement.
yeah, retirement assessment, yes. Yep, that's a 5,000 series for DESI accounting. So state pension assessment, insurance, and we actually, in that last year, that 1 year for our teachers, left the Gateway Health Group to join a different group and lower our insurance costs as well, because we were
Yeah,
looking at a huge
so-
hit in insurance.
I got that written down on my 2012 sheet. It
Yes.
says total employee benefits.
Yes.
And then we're a percentage of that number,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Debt service.
Debt service is separate.
Is there, if, did we do something with debt with you folks? Like,
Yeah.
think we did something?
Yeah.
So, is that inside the budget?
Yes.
Ah. How long is that debt?
Be
Did,
paid off soon.
This budget is the last year of our bond and capital lease.
so wait a minute. Is there any way, we know what the town of Acushnet's piece of that pie is there any way for us to fund that differently than in the budget? Like, free cash, we could just say, we can give you
that,
whatever the portion of it is that's inside the budget.
I would have to check the Mass General Law, but I believe Acushnet could pay for the capital lease. However, they wanted to pay for the capital lease. It's actually a capital lease.
How much is it?
It's the bigger piece of this. So about 400,000. About 125,000 is the bond. The bond you all have to pay the same way. But the capital lease might be able to be removed, and I can check Mass General Law. I can actually check with bond counsel and ask.
So does that all come off the books this year? Like, this is our last
After
year?
this budget, FY25 budget,
Yeah?
those payments will be complete.
That lease thing that you just talked about for
The capital
400?
lease with the balloon,
And then you talked about a bond
a
for
bond, yes.
125. Is
Yes.
125 the town of Acushnet share?
No, 125 is the total payment.
And then there's 400 grand.
Total payment.
That's just our chunk of money?
Total payment for Old Colony. So you're seeing
Oh,
500.
so our percentage would be 35% of that? That's what I'm at. That's,
Ish.
Hold on. Okay, so
Yeah.
your capital
It's
and
gonna
debt
be comparable to
percentage.
those numbers that I sent.
yeah, the numbers that are on the spreadsheet were roughly 34%, okay? So let's just call us 40% for this bondish thing. I mean, lease-ish thing.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
60,000.
Four times 4 is 160 grand, right? So it's a little bit less than 160 grand.
Yeah. Yes.
So if we,
I have to check. I'll have to check.
so if you could,
Yes,
because
I
if
will
that
check.
helps
Yeah.
the town of Acushnet
Right.
pay in a one lump sum and get that off our portion of our assessment to bring down our budget, so we're up, call it 515, right, from the previous year? Okay, so if that brings that number down now and takes off that, we'll just call it 150-ish?
Yeah.
And that would put us down to, 380, 370?
You're not wrong.
That's a big change. It's a game changer.
Different funding source for you, right? That's what
So I just have to check on statutory method for assessment on that. Please let me check on that.
I'm sorry, Sarah?
I have to check on statutory method for assessment because you are part of our regional agreement, and our regional agreement speaks to the statutory method for assessment. So I would just want to double check with that. But yes, capital leases are not voted by our member towns the way that a debt is. It is not debt.
I'd really love to know the answer to that
Not a
sooner rather than
bond.
later. We only have a couple of weeks left, and if that's an option for the town of Acushnet to do it, I think that's a discussion this board needs to have.
Be real beneficial.
That'd be extremely beneficial, right? Because now we rid ourselves of that, and we know next year we don't have that built into the budget anymore, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the budget, from a planning perspective, what that line, we've been told, don't let that line dip too much because you want to carry a certain level
Of debt.
of debt.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
That's
gonna,
the
you
only
just said it's
piece
disappearing.
Right.
So
It
what,
is retiring.
don't go there, don't be sneaky and say I'm gonna go
It's
get
not
more
sneaky.
debt.
It's not sneaky, but
It's been
it's with the
advice we've
building
been
budget
given.
forthcoming.
Yeah.
We don't know how we'll be advised.
But that is a lease, it's not a debt.
Yes, sir. That's why I'm saying these words to you, because I know that you know what that means.
Yeah.
Yes. I just want to be careful. We have had many meetings where we've talked about this debt. And with us talking about a potential building project and acquiring more debt, the wave and fluctuation of, let's say, a dip in your assessment and then an increase in assessment,
I
Yeah.
understand, but
Not all members.
we need a dip. We're in a time where we need some dip. Now, the debt is coming off no matter what anyway. You have no control over that unless you create more debt in the next year, is what you're saying, right?
Right, all I'm saying is I don't know what the building project will bring. And so I don't wanna make a promise here and say there's something disappearing.
The debt,
That
so
particular
let me
piece is disappearing.
rephrase, Aaron, so
Yeah.
that I can be clear, right? So forget about the debt because we know we can't pay that off. And I know that there's talk about it being paid off, but then we might get more debt, right?
Right.
We talk about the lease.
We're talking about the lease.
That would be a kick.
Yeah.
Forget about the debt. I understand keeping it inside of a budget so that you don't have that massive fluctuation. The lease is a game changer.
Sure.
If there's 1 year left,
Yeah.
if we have the ability
Yeah.
to pay out in a cash advance, it's out of a budgetary, right?
Yeah, I don't know that
But you
how.
have to do it for.
You guys can work together.
So that actually potentially might be what has to be done, which is that all of the town administrators would get together and talk about whether or not they were all on the same page for payment for the capital lease for the last year.
Right, because if there's a uniformity.
Why couldn't we just say, I don't like being linked to all these other towns because they hold, I don't want them holding the purse string. I know it's BS, quite honestly, I'll be honest with you. It's BS, you know why? Because the town of Acushnet and Lakeville are better than 60% of your budget. We should have the ruling the deciding factor on that thing, instead of, oh, I need a third town when their assessments went down to say, hey, we're not happy with something, right? It shouldn't be that way. It should be the majority wins, not, oh, guess what? I'm out of poison and my assessment went down, so yeah, of course I'm happy with your budget. Screw you, Acushnet. Right? That's the mentality.
I
So
think the flip of that,
if
I hear what you're saying, I think the flip of that is we've always tried to be collaborative in the way we do
With
things.
everyone.
No, I get- no,
So we
I-
bring all the players to the table,
same time.
have a conversation.
I get it, but I
people
don't
up.
like somebody else saying, no, I want out, and not, like you just said with the other town administrators. We should be able to say, if that portion of money, maybe we're gonna get creative on our own side, and we're gonna say that if that's the case, we're gonna pay for it this way, and supplement that number this way, because it's only a one-time thing, but it's a paid debt.
Some of it's just the law, right? Like we can only do what we're allowed to do.
No, I totally get it, but just explore the options, see if it's an option for us to do it, right? And if it's not, then now it opened up a conversation for us to say, maybe we're not gonna use X, Y, Z for that fund, and we're gonna put it towards the budget and pay for that lease to get out of that debt. So pay down debt. So I don't need to tell the DOI I need to figure out a way to pay it back, because it's already paid off. Have a nice day. Oh, yeah. We're getting creative.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming in. Well, hey,
You're welcome.
we gotta do what we gotta do.
Thank you for having
But
us.
anyways, thank you so much for coming in. Shirley, it's a pleasure seeing you.
And see you as well.
Mr. Polanski, as always, thank you very much for coming in and clarifying some questions and whatever you could do to hammer the number. Let's do it.
Do our best.
And hopefully your letter makes it to some reasonable folks up at the State House.
We're doing our best.
So,
Thank you, Sarah.
thank you.
Have a good day, guys. Thanks, guys.
We have a 2-minute recess,
Bye, it's
Executive
over.
session, right?
executive session. You don't want to,
Nope. I came up with a plan, we're gonna talk Thursday morning.
all right. Let me just make sure I get a number.
From whom?
No, a number of, the exact number. Sarah.
We're going to executive session, right? Steelworkers?
No, let's just ask me.
No, it's.
So that's your.
This was the.
Sorry, I read the wrong one. Sorry.
No, he's got a bunch of different ones for Friday,
All right.
I think.
Oh, Friday's the
I don't know.
soil worker.
Friday's that one, yeah.
So anyways, gentlemen, it's as far down to the wire we are. We gave town administrators some opportunity to try to figure things out with the FinCom, but we have a massive budget deficit, right? And I'm gonna try to sit down with the town administrator, look at some revenues, look at the budget, individual budgets, but there's a lot of work to be done on the budget side. I'm confident Mr. Kelly and I can work some magic, but I don't think we're capable of working all the magic. So I would just ask that if you would look at some of the budgets yourself and, put some concentration on obviously the bigger ones that we have. the smaller ones that we have, they're mostly even.
Yep.
So there's nothing really left there to cut, so I would just ask that you put some consideration into looking at the budgets and saying, when Mr. Kelly, he'll give you new updated budgets based on department heads and say, you know, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And give them some input, because
Close of business Thursday, I should be able to have.
I'm gonna be here tomorrow with Mr. Kelly, working through some numbers and some budgets and things, but it's not gonna happen just tomorrow. I was gonna try to schedule a meeting for Monday at 11 o'clock to do budgets. I don't know if we're gonna have this hammered out.
We could get.
I'll spend the rest of the week with you, not
No.
that you wanna spend it with me. I don't wanna really spend it with you, but this is extremely important, right?
We could get rid of a lot of the budgets we know are not gonna
All right,
change.
so is you available Monday at 11 o'clock to do
Next Monday?
just budgets, nothing else, no other BS is going on in the agenda?
Let me just
I'm
make
shutting
sure.
Mr. Kelly down. We're only discussing budgets. We're gonna hammer through as much as Mr. Kelly and I can hammer through as individuals. I would like to get the ones that we can hammer out together by Friday, so you folks can have it for the weekend, just give a quick pass over.
So,
Understand the ones that we can. Maybe we'll nail every one but some of the bigger ones, 5 budgets, 6 budgets, and then we'll take those up on Monday if we can get to it and figure this out. If not, we're gonna scramble, we're gonna do what we need to do, but we need to do our part.
Yeah. Even if it's
We
about
just
getting
asked Mr.
everything.
Polanski, and I think that the team, you know, Old Colony, after getting this verification, I will say that, you know, I've been doing Old Colony budgets for a long time. I know it's a big increase appears because of the additional students and the phase out and all that stuff, but they're doing everything they can now that they answered my questions about transportation.
Yep.
I get it a lot better now that they are allocating a percentage of it. So, be that as it may, they're gonna try to do whatever they can do to help the situation out, and with, as far as the town of Acushnet's assessment, that's great. We need to do what we need to do with our own budgets, and then really it comes down to the local school department seeing what they could possibly do with their budget, and plug some different numbers in and see where the end number comes up. But at 2.4 million over last year's, we don't have that revenue. There's no way we can spend that kind of money. We'll kill the taxpayers. It's tough enough spending 1.2 million year over year, let alone anything above that number, so.
So, couple things. I've looked at the budget, I've got a list of things that I think could hit the cutting room floor. I'll talk to Jamie about that.
Please.
I was glad to see, well, I'm not a tax guy, I'm glad to see the meals tax at least up for consideration. But I think there's one other piece of this that we've got to really consider is the solar pilots. I know we've got a number of them online, we've talked about it. I think that's a piece of the puzzle. And Kevin,
Yeah, do it.
you've been a leader on this, you know, as far as making sure that the depreciating revenue doesn't make its way into the operating budget. But with the pilots for the next 20 years, we would have a fixed
Schedule.
line, a fixed schedule, right? And Bob, you know this better than anybody now. And I think with your sight lines to that, if we've got projects that are close to being permitted that aren't putting us in jeopardy environmentally, like we know that ones that are, we don't want that used against us,
Yeah.
right? But if we know that there are projects that are up and running soon, that don't deal with forestry cutting, that are really simple and are safe, I think we might want to look at a couple of those to bring in a fixed revenue stream. Again, we don't need to sell our soul,
No.
but if it might be the time to look at that. And I think if that's a piece of that puzzle that we're not.
The one thing that we have going to our advantage, and I agree, we talked about the pilot thing, and I'm 100% on board. Even if you did a couple of them, you know,
We like to do all.
the future ones, right? And we still have the other ones, although, I'll say it, you blow out a lot of forestry for somebody else to make a lot of money, because I've run reports on the first 2 in the town of Acushnet, okay? And the amount of revenue over a 20-year period that this town makes, you basically put in 2 house lots and you'll accumulate the same amount of revenue over the same 20 years. That's sad,
Yep.
considering what kind of money these people are making, or the landowners making on a lease. They make more money than what the municipality makes,
Correct.
and they're blowing out all that forestry. In some cases, not all cases, some open fields, right, great. But to Dave's point, I think we need to at least have that chapter open. And did we adopt something in the past about pilots? I thought we did already.
Yeah, we went to town meeting to give us the ability to negotiate.
Yeah.
We have the mechanism to do it. I would say right off the jump, if it's a solar project that is got flooding issues, then we're not talking to you.
Yeah.
Right.
You will not benefit from that opportunity.
Right.
But if it's somebody on,
Got it. Yeah, and then we got money in the bank to pay off the school roof, right? That's a big chunk. We're gonna do something in the fall with that to pay, before we reband. We're gonna pay off 400 grand, maybe use some free cash, because we talked about that as a board before you were here, Mr. Kelly, that we'd use some free cash to pay that number down as well and bring it down. I think with that revenue, the other revenue sources we have in solar arrays, we'll still be able to pay that band, right? As we wean down that amount. And to Dave's point, you get a couple of the new ones, if they're decent revenue, you do the 25-year pilot, right? And you just, it just puts a fixed rate for 20 years,
It creates
right?
a fixed tax bill for that.
For 20
for that
years, so
project.
you don't have that variable is what we're saying.
You get a depreciating schedule
And-
as it goes.
And after town meeting, we should start to look at the fee schedules, because we're a lot lower than every town around.
Yeah. And that goes for every board and every committee that has permitting fee schedules.
And the other thing that I'll go on the selectmen's announcements is, speaking of solar, we got all this energy stuff that we get, the rate increase that we're getting and all this other stuff, and maybe you could take a look at the fire department, what the contract is, the deal is, and how we can use that, if we can use credits from them for our other buildings, because I'm not familiar with all of that stuff, but I
There's
did.
a lot of interesting ways to deal with solar credits, so without seeing the contract, I won't speak on what the setup is, but I'm
Right.
more
But
than
you're-
happy to look at
But
it.
you're in that game now, so you probably be the best person to do that, Bob, and if you could, on behalf of the board, is take a look at that, see what's going on with that, credits, how they're gonna be applied to other municipal buildings. We need to be as creative as we can,
Yep.
especially the way energy bills are going, and Dave, thank you very much for gonna have that conversation with Rep. Strauss and Rep. Schmidt, with Mr. Kelly, and see what we can do with the transportation bond bill. I can say, on behalf of the residents at Slocum Street, it would be a crying shame if we can't get that road accomplished for you this go-around. There's a lot of money that's out there in opera in the transportation bond bill, and hopefully you'll show up at town meeting and support that road project, seeing how you've been looking for it for 30 years. It would be nice to get a project like that and beautify that area of town, along with other things that we still need to get done. So Monday, 11 o'clock,
We have Friday as well, right?
we got some executive sessions on Friday to deal with. Mr. Kelly.
And an open session.
And maybe an open session, grievance, if the individual so chooses. We'll leave it up to that individual, open or executive. And so the next meeting will be Monday at 11 a.m. Just budgets, nothing else,
Just budgets.
budgets. And I'll see you tomorrow. All right? And then following that meeting will be Tuesday, April 30th, but hopefully we'll be wrapping all of this stuff up. So, with no further business tonight, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.